While writing this message, an ad popped up on my news feed. It was from a Christian resource entitled Pray and Go. It seems like a great title for any Christian family Mother's Day. Pray and then go. This message is based upon 1 Peter 3, and Pray and Go would be a great title. I'm going to use a similar one, but different. The title is Do's and Don'ts. How many of us remember as children our parents teaching us important lessons about the do's and the don'ts of living life? Moms saying do's like this: Jimmy, do say thank you. Do clean your teeth. Do be home on your bike before supper. But also out of love, we were told some don'ts, such as don't touch the hot stove, don't go near the flooded pond, and don't forget to practice the piano. I didn't do well on that one. How about you? What were your do's and your don'ts growing up? What do's or don'ts have you maybe instilled in children or grandchildren or stepchildren? They are good things. They are good things to be given in love. We need to pass on to each generation lessons about life and learning. Do your homework before any screen time. Don't forget to save for a rainy day. And do know that if it seems too good to be true, it's not true. This second Sunday of May is a day that can cause a bit of confusion. We may be asking ourselves, what exactly are we celebrating? We may be asking, who exactly are we celebrating? And we grapple with the definition of that who. Today is for those who mother currently in whatever way one can perceive. In whatever generation it takes place. Today is also for those living or those having passed who do or did mother as moms, grandmoms, great-grandmas, stepmoms, and godmothers. Plus, it is for those who were or are mother figures in our lives. I think everyone here, whether worshiping live or worshiping virtually, can identify that understanding in some way of mothers and mothering. You can engage in an appreciation in one or more ways as we lift up mothering in worship today. It's about guiding others, about giving instructions, advice in a loving and caring manner. Peter, in the writing today, shared his lists of do's and don'ts, and that is good mothering. First, Peter said, do be an imitator of what is good. Peter puts it this way, now who is it that will harm you if you become imitators of that which is good? If you become imitators of that which is good. We are instructed to show in ourselves good. The good maybe that we've been taught by those who love us. Peter's assumption, of course, is that Christians, those he's writing to, are attempting to lead at least good in their lives as much as possible. Those who mother want often to know who we are with, don't they? They not only want to know where we are, but who we are with. Have you ever received that questioning? Have you ever given that questioning? Some of us were masters at not being where we were supposed to be. You were told not to get in with the wrong crowd. It was definitely a don't from mothers, and it was a do from moms to get in with the right crowd. You see, who we are with, we tend to imitate what they are doing. Psychology Today tells us in their publication, human beings often mimic or imitate others unconsciously. It has social benefits. Imitating helps others build rapport between two people or bond together a social group. That's one of the ways you create a successful team. Copying others more broadly can range from non-conscientious processes whereby, by perception, we adopt behaviors linked to that closeness by imitating. So moms know instinctively what is good for us by those we're with, and whether we are imitating what's good or not so good for us. Secondly, Peter says, if you become imitators of that which is good. Now the scholar tells us a literal translation would be, if you are zealously devoted to that which is good. Do be devoted to that which is good. It's an intentional, an unintentional way of looking at life, imitating what is good. Now that's more than faking it till you make it. It's that sense of who we are copying or who we're trying to be like. Now, zeal, which the scripture talks about, zeal can be good or bad. It can be positive or negative, depending on how it's played out. It can bring us closer to others and closer to God, or drive us further away from God or from others. Obviously, a passion, a zeal to do revenge would not be in accord with Jesus' teaching on forgiveness. Even a passion for God has the potential to get off kilter. Last summer, I was driving through a small Ontario town in southwestern part of the province, and I was stopped at a red light. I had my windows up and the air conditioning on. Then all of a sudden, I heard a booming sound which shook my car windows. You probably had that. I looked around to see who had their car windows down and the bass yanked up with music on high. However, that quickly realized that that sound was not from another car. I heard this piercing sound from someone standing at the intersection of the stoplight where we were. And all of a sudden, I heard what was being said. You're going to burn in hell. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. It certainly took me back. You're going to burn in hell. Well, I looked over and realized there was a street preacher at the intersection with these speakers that must have been that high on either side of him. And those who stopped at the stoplight were told they were going to hell. I'm not sure what that preacher was doing with the sound assault was something that would cause anyone who didn't know Jesus or know God to be motivated or called to imitate God, to imitate the way of Jesus Christ. To me, it was over the top. The preacher was not imitating the Jesus I know. Now think of Saul. Before he was called Paul, he was sort of zealous for God, wasn't he? He was so zealous, he went around persecuting the Christians, even to the point of death, binding and delivering them into prison. But then he encountered God. He encountered Jesus, and he was transformed. Well, the story of that little town visit continues. A few blocks later, I'm stopped at another intersection by a red light. And I look over, and I see some young kids in the front yard of a rather old, sort of humble house, and they are weeding the garden. There's a rather frail man sitting on a kitchen chair looking at them. And there is the mother, sort of directing the children who were fairly young, younger than most of those that came for Youth Story today, on how to weed a garden. I'm sure it was a little bit more work than if she did it herself. But I thought to myself, what a powerful image of mothering. Showing them how to weed a garden. And in my head, I thought, they're doing it for this man who's not able to do it for himself. They were helping him out with that garden. And mothering is about the seeds we plant and the gardens we nourish in a figurative way as well as a literal way. So as I drove along and I got on the 401 and to come back to Walton, I thought about those two powerful images. How do we walk in the steps of Jesus? Which would call people to the message of Christ? Third, that which is good, Peter says. The Greek word here speaks of good as being virtuous or benevolent. We are to imitate what is good. Now, last time I stood in this pulpit 2 weeks ago, I preached about the duty of care. Any of you were here? It was about how the Walton congregation will attempt to imitate that which is good in caring for one another. You may recall in that sermon that day, I looked down at the pulpit and I read what has been taped up here for many years. And I noticed it's been retyped and it's newly put in since I did it 2 weeks ago. Thank you. It says, when an event is identified, assign one person to assess the situation and take a lead. One person call 911 when necessary. One person to bring wheelchair and defibrillator. Two people to go to the back door to direct emergency personnel to the location. When I read those words on April 30th, little did I realized that a week later they would be imitated on Sunday, May 7th. I was away preaching at my childhood church's anniversary service. And you see a person fell coming up those stairs to worship. And I was delighted to hear as I came back from Etobicoke how those directions were followed, not from the pulpit, but from down those stairs, by a team of people who cared for that individual who fell down the stairs. The plan in its various do's was imitated and acted out. I'm pleased to tell you the person is fine. But to me, that is Walton mothering one who fell. That duty of care is about being there in a crisis, if you will. Those people thrown together who were nearby, reacting with the dues we have in the duty of care. Think back to what I said when we started. What dues do you have written in your memory, in your hard drive of your life? What dues do you see you do today because of someone who mothered you? On this Mother's Day, let us say thank you.